So here's the thing. I like the audio industry. In fact, don't tell anyone, but I even like most of the audiophiles that I meet. It's just that whenever you spend enough time around something, you witness behaviors that frustrate you. And over time, that frustration builds and builds and builds until finally you can't keep quiet about it anymore. And that's what you're watching right now is a good old-fashioned rant video about not just the hi-fi industry, but also about certain behaviors that audiophiles manifest. Now, before I begin, I need to give credit where credit is due. This video was inspired by another YouTuber named Cheap Audio Man who recently went on his own rant about audiophiles. I reached out to him and I said, hey, I like the video. Do you mind if I spin off of it? He was totally cool with it, so here we are. So with that said, let's begin. Rant number 1. And this one actually comes from Cheap Audio Man as well. Manufacturers, and to an extent, distributors, please do a better job of telling us what we can do to get great performance out of your products. And this holds especially true to those of you who make something that has very specific requirements in order for the listener to fully appreciate what it is your product is capable of. Guys, it's 2021. Those little brochures aren't good enough. Pick up a camera, get some studio lights, and film some videos. You don't even have to worry about production value. This is what a customer really wants. So let's just say you're a speaker manufacturer. Take your product and showcase it in at least 3 different types of rooms. Explain how to set up a product in each space and what somebody can do to really get ideal performance out of it. And this is also a sales opportunity because maybe you're showing off a speaker that'll work great in a large room, but not so well in a small room. This is a great chance to say, okay, well, in a small room, here's something else that we have in our portfolio that will likely be a better fit for you, and here's why, and here's what you can do with it. It's not hard. And if you build electronic components, specifically high-feature components, then go on camera and explain very clearly, this is what we were aiming for with this product. Here's the kind of performance that we're looking for. Now, you probably understand that not everyone's going to like that. However, if you have a lot of features built in, maybe there's a way for the listener to customize the sound to their taste via tone controls, filters, or whatever. Go on camera and explain that. Believe me, customers will love this and they will find it comforting. And there's no reason not to. It doesn't even cost you a whole lot of money, only just a little bit of time. So please, help us out. Stop relying on people like me to do the work for you. Stop relying on your dealers, because let's face it, most of you don't even provide your dealers with quality training. This is what's called added value, and it helps everybody out. So pretty please, with sugar on top, help us out a little bit. Rant number 2, and this one infuriates me. This is when a manufacturer will make a pretty significant change to a product in the middle of its life cycle without telling anyone. This, in my opinion, is damaging behavior. For starters, as a reviewer, I put a tremendous amount of effort into providing the most accurate performance summary that I can about a product, with the whole goal of setting the right expectation for somebody. That way, if they make a purchasing decision based off of my review, then they should know exactly what it is that they're getting into. And it's really difficult to do this when certain companies out there are literally changing the product without telling anybody. The net result of that is the customer takes on the product, they try it out, and they say, it's not exactly what that reviewer said. And that's because it's not the same product that I reviewed. It's not fair to me. It damages my credibility. It's not fair to the customer because they came in with a different expectation. And quite frankly, it looks really bad on you because people talk. And when they talk and it looks like you have a product that invites polarizing opinions, kind of looks like you're doing something wrong. And what you're doing wrong is you're modifying a product without telling anybody. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that there are going to be circumstances that will force you into this position. Maybe you build electronic components and some critical parts no longer become available to you. You have back orders, you need to fulfill them, so you reach for something that's supposed to measure just as well. I get it. But when you make a conscious decision to change or modify a product, even if your intentions are to improve it, without saying a word, that's a bad look. So stop it. If you need to make a change, then use this as a marketing opportunity. Call it a mid-cycle refresh. Call it a signature edition. Call it what you will, but let people know. Otherwise, it's just bad for us all. Let's move on. Okay, so before I move on to rant number 3, I need to make it clear that what I said previously is not behavior that every company in the audio industry exhibits. In fact, there's not too many companies who do this, but there's just enough to where I feel like it warranted a public rant. Now, let's move on to number 3, which is actually fairly simple, which is if you're an audio company who makes big claims, then I expect you to back it up with evidence. If you tell me that your speaker cables make a huge difference, then it shouldn't be too hard to prove. If you're a speaker company and you tell me that it undergoes a huge change over the first 100 hours, that should be measurable, right? Now here's a rant. I know of at least a handful of companies who've told me we've measured the difference between a product that's brand new and a product that has 500 hours on it. We've measured it. To which I say, okay, then how come you haven't published that data? Seems like it would be very useful, which means either you're lying or number 2, you're cowardly because you don't want to face any kind of scrutiny with your measurements. But the bottom line is, if they're legit and they're repeatable in other facilities, then not only do you bring credibility to your brand, but quite frankly, you bring credibility to this industry. So if you have that data and you're confident in it, produce it. It's as simple as that. Let's move on. Okay, so enough about manufacturers. Now it's time to talk about the audiophile press. Hi guys, did you know that we're all on the same team? No, we may not always agree with each other or even like each other, but we still play on the same side. Be that as it may, it's time to highlight the issue of moral grandstanding, especially as it relates to how you make your money in this business. Because I see some of you out there, and there are some of you out there who love to place yourself high on this moral pillar, claiming that the way you make money is more ethically pure than what everybody else does. And I'm just here to say, stop. If you're running a successful media entity in the hi-fi industry, then odds are your hands are in the cookie jar along with everybody else's. Let me give you some examples. Maybe you're running banners on your website. Maybe you sell awards. Maybe you're running ads in your print publication. Maybe you've accepted sponsorships. You probably get free gear once in a while. Am I right? And then if you're on YouTube, there's a good chance you're running affiliate links, which are basically glorified commissioned sales. And what your audience may not know is if it doesn't come from a store like, say, Amazon, that means you are likely getting a check directly from the manufacturer. Doesn't matter how you slice this, whether you have a third party who negotiates deals and distributes checks to your team, you are taking money from within the industry, specifically manufacturers and distributors. Now, to be very clear, I have no problems with this at all. If you work hard and you provide value, then you should get something out of it. It's called utility. It's a very basic human need. So to be very clear, because I can see some of you out there twisting this narrative for your purposes, this isn't about what's morally right or wrong. This isn't even about being transparent with your audience. This is about moral grandstanding and claiming that your revenue stream is more moral and ethical than everybody else's. It's not. So stop. You do you and let everybody else do their own thing. Should be as easy as that. Let's move on. So to wrap up this video, let's focus on certain audiophile behaviors. Number 1, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's snake oil. Number 2, just because something is expensive or outside of your budget doesn't make it overpriced. Number 3, just because something is affordable and well under your budget doesn't make it junk. Number 4, If you have no first-hand experience with a product, then you should not comment about its value or performance. Stop having an opinion about something that you have no experience with. It's just useless. And then lastly, number 4, you don't know it all. That's why there's no one guru in this business. We have specialists, people who specialize in acoustics, people who specialize in tube amp design, solid state amp design, digital, dynamic speakers, horn speakers, electrostats. You get the idea. There's no one person who knows it all, so stop trying to be a know-it-all. Trust me, you're not that guy. Let's wrap up this video. I have to admit, that felt pretty good. Now before you leave, there are 2 things that are very important that I need to mention. The first is that I've been guilty of 2 of the behaviors that I mentioned earlier. The first is grandstanding. 3 or so years ago, I was that guy. I thought that my way of doing things was morally superior to everybody else's. I'm not proud of it. I've thankfully learned from it. I'm no longer that guy, but I was. So I'm not casting stones here. I'm actually speaking from a position of experience. Next, I was also guilty of being a know-it-all. This took place more towards the beginning of my audio journey, when I started to learn the differences between, say, a first order crossover and a third order crossover and all that different stuff. It really just got to my head. Thankfully, I got out of that mindset, but there are some people in this industry who never do. And it's so sad because this ego robs you of learning opportunities. And quite frankly, it kind of makes you look like a jackass. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video with some context. Guys, this video has definitely taken on a very serious demeanor, but when you really get right down to it, it's not that big of a deal. It's just hi-fi. We're all drawn together due to our love for music and our passion for the gear that makes it sound awesome. It's actually a pretty cool thing. It's just that being human, when we invest so much of our time and money and just energy towards a craft, towards a hobby, we get wrapped up in all the little nuances. And sometimes it feels good to get some of those frustrations off of our chest. I know it felt good for me today. And I'm curious to know whether or not you agree with some of the points that I made in today's video, whether you disagree, or maybe you have something else that you would like to share. By all means, do so in the comments section, but that's the end of this video. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.